So since buying the ECU, I don't know where I've left the bill, but if I go onto eBay, I can kind of show you. If I scroll down and then go to 2014 and then scroll down to my bought items, you can see, so I ordered it on October 24th, and I live in Ottawa, Canada, so I got it like 2 weeks later probably. Okay, so this is my 76 Datsun 280Z. It's turbocharged and used to be running on Megasquirt, but I changed ECUs because I wanted more of the features that you have on Haltech, like the more inputs and outputs, and the fact that I can run, see I'm running a GM throttle body, so I have the idle air control valve, so that runs off the H-bridge. What I've been having problems with is trying to get a clean ignition signal. Currently I'm using a crank sensor off of a 96 Ford Taurus with the EDIS, the old EDIS setup. I'm not using the EDIS, I just have the VR sensor hooked directly to Haltech, the trigger negative and trigger positive. I'll show you the trigger wheel here. It's a 36:1, just stock for the vehicle. I'll explain the Moretz and stuff later too. You can see it there, and that's a stock Ford sensor. Brand new one, I should add. So, anyways, what's happening is when I'm cranking, or even when the engine's running, you'll see the RPM will kind of, it's almost like it's dropping out, or it's how should I say it? It's missing. But when I have the miss counter on, it doesn't count as a miss. Here's the trace graph. As you can see, I have the red as the miss count and the blue as the trigger count. So it's a bit challenging kind of to hold the camera and touch the solenoid wire on the battery, so this is kind of the best I can get you, but you'll see what it does here. Watch the RPM. Anyways, you can see how it twitches. I originally thought this was because of a noisy signal from the VR sensor or something along those lines. So what I did was that's why it's moretted up to the crank sensor, just to see what signal it's outputting, and then I have the wire going along the floor, the white wire you see there, and it goes all the way in the car to the pins of the ECU. Reason why I did this is because I thought maybe there was some kind of noise being introduced into the signal, but it's not the case. And right now I have, you see I've separated from all these AC, these power cables and stuff. So here's my oscilloscope. I have it hooked up to the input at the ECU where the crank signal is going into. I just want to show you what the signal looks like, and I'll even pause it so that you can see the 35 teeth in between each missing tooth. So there you have it there. So you can see it's a very clean signal. I know it doesn't show up well on the camera, but you can clearly see the two missing teeth. I know it does change in strength a little bit. It's because there's a tiny bit of run out on the trigger wheel. But that's not causing the problem. I've done tests to make sure that wasn't the problem. My thresholds for the trigger signal are set on very low. I've tried very low to very high, but you can clearly count 35 teeth before the missing tooth. Just wanted to note, it doesn't miss all the time. As you saw, the needle dropping on the ECU manager. I can go through waves and pause this all day, and I can't find any one of the teeth in between that has dropped out or, you know, been manipulated by noise, or I lost signal, you know. So I'm at a loss as to why the ECU is not registering the signal. So I also want to mention that I have tried upgrading my firmware, as you can see right there. I have tried that and it did not make a difference. And I'm going to show you my main setup. I mean, this stuff we don't really care about, but I mean, this will pretty much be the same as an RB. Almost should be the same firing order, to 15, 36, 24. I'm going to go to the trigger. So I'm running a 36-1 tooth. So I have the Motronic 36-1. This stuff we don't really care about right now. I have it running about 205 degrees before top dead center is where the missing tooth is, and then I have an offset of 15 teeth plus the 55 degrees. Makes sense. Trigger edge is falling, which it should be for these sensors, well, assuming you've got your negative VE and your positive VE correct. Trigger sensor type is reluctor. Ignition is wasted spark. Spark edge, well, it's LS2 coils, so it's very straightforward, running on wasted spark. So I have 2 coils on each spark output. I'm using 3 of the spark outputs out of 4 on the PS100, or PS1000 I should say, sorry. Constant charge, 3.5 millisecond dwell, but I mean, you should be between 4 and 6, but that's, once again, it's regardless. I have my ignition locked right now because I've been fooling around with trigger wheels and tried Hall sensors to try and get a clear signal, and nothing seems to work. I was told by a friend that it had to be my VR sensor, but you know, I changed to a Hall sensor. You know, your Honeywell GD101 or whatever sensor it is. Without a difference. I even tried grinding down my teeth on my square trigger that I have for my Hall sensor down to 12 to try and eliminate the amount of pulses the ECU was getting. It helped a little bit, but not much. And then I tried having a cam sensor too. This is just kind of, you know, I just kind of have the Honeywell sensor inside here. I'm using that. The distributor with a welded on just flat bar of metal, and basically passes the sensor, and that gives me my cam position. I was using 12 teeth on the crank and then 1 + 1 home. That it ran the best on that, but still has that stutter where the, you know, you see the needle goes like that all the time. It's like it drops out almost. So what I'm thinking is that it might be, or what I was thinking is it might be the power going to the ECU. It's getting kind of switched off somehow. Here's the voltage going to the ECU at, or closest to the pin. When I start it, you'll see it. See, right now it's at 5 volts per division, so it's at about 12.5 volts, and it'll go down to 10.5 when I'm cranking. So this is a video of when I first got it running. This is running on the 36-1 VR sensor. Pretty much this is the second start after just kind of tuning the VE map. But just to prove that it was working. Sorry about the video quality. I'm just kind of filming it off of Facebook. It's a lot easier at this point, but just to prove that it was working. Anyways, after that point, in the quest to kind of get rid of that small little stutter, I since then bought a square tooth trigger wheel, 36-1, and had the Honeywell G101 or GD101 Hall sensor. You know, and I know none of this stuff is really rocket science. I know it means a lot coming from an electronics technologist, but you know, I mean, I'm so careful when I do this stuff. You know, whenever I change a setting, I always unplug the sensors and make the setting first, you know, just in case. Anyways, when I changed the firmware, hoping that that's the last thing that it was, that's after checking all the pinouts, like checking every single pin, the voltages, ohming out wires, just countless hours. I was hoping the firmware update from 1.13.0 to 1.13.1 was going to be the fix, but it wasn't. So the car on the Hall sensor was still doing the same thing, and so now I'm back to the VR again after the firmware, and it's like you've seen there. That's the product, and I cannot get rid of that dropout or whatever that is. I've tried everything, as you can see. At this point, you know, like I went into this troubleshooting thinking for sure it was something that I did, but now I'm not so convinced. Anyways, yeah, since switching to the back to the VR for whatever reason, I don't have any output for my coils, and I have voltage at the coils and everything, so I don't know what that is related to. I'll upload I'll put a video in of when I had the when I had Haltech running the motor with the 12 tooth with the home signal from the distributor that you saw there. So this is, you know, I was running the Honeywell GD101 sensor, or whatever it is, with this wheel. I met all the sensor demands. It's 4 millimeters thick. The teeth are, what was it, 2.6 or 0.26 inches long this way, and you know, it has enough spacing in between the teeth that it doesn't confuse between them. This used to be a 36 tooth. I mean, it was doing the same thing with a 36 tooth, so this is, you know, I ground it down so it was a 12 tooth with even spacing, and it's just still having problems. So then I decided to switch back to the VR. Well, first I decided to switch my firmware, or update the firmware. That didn't change, so now I switch back to the VR sensor, and the now the coils aren't working for some reason. They're getting power, but so if you guys can shed any light as to what could be the further problem, there's stuff that I've done that I haven't even mentioned in terms of troubleshooting. So if you can, maybe you have any ideas, or you know, would like to see the unit itself. I don't know how that would work. I guess I would have to ship it to you for it to be tested. I wish I had a function generator, actually, but I don't. Just an oscilloscope. So yeah, just let me know what you think. Thanks.